Good afternoon, everyone. You must be able to hear me because I'm like ricocheting here in the room. Well, let me begin by just saying thank you. You know, this is the second strategic planning conference that the college has done in my tenure as president. And I have to say, for those of you that were with us 5.5 years ago, I hope that you have seen the results of your work, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get started this morning. But we also have some new folks, some new opinion leaders and thought leaders in our state and across the country that have joined us, some new board members. So we are really looking forward to hearing from you as we work together over the next couple days to put together the next strategic plan for Harper College. I have to say that when I first arrived here, I wanted to do this really badly. And we needed to do it, to bring people, take them off campus, put them in a space. We needed about $50,000 to make it happen. I didn't know anybody. And I knew that the last headline I wanted in the Daily Herald was, Harper College Board spends $50,000 for junket to whatever the name of this hotel is. So I went to a guy I barely knew, Ken Gorman, who represents the power companies, both construction and wellness, and I just basically pled my case and said, Ken, we really need to do this. It will be an investment in this community. You've got to trust me on that, and we're going to be long-term partners and have a great relationship. He took a bet on us. He's seen the results of his investment, so when I came back this time, he just said, how much? And he gave every penny that we asked. So let me acknowledge Ken Gorman, and Ken asked you to say a few words. Thank
you. Thank you, Dr. Ender. Can everybody hear me now? Good. Those are very kind words you to say, and it's an incredibly worthy cause, and to get a group of people like this together for 3 days, leaders in multiple companies and institutions from the Chicago area is an amazing feat, and really a tribute to their belief in Dr. Ender, the college, and what they're trying to do. On behalf of the power companies, I would like to express our continued support and sponsorship of this strategic plan. It will help create a framework in which people can continue to foster new ideas that will shape the future of this institution that's been here since 1962, 64, for the years to come. And we've seen in the last 5 years incredible changes at the college, and this kind of program will foster even more changes going forward that'll change the facilities, the programs, and the educational experience that the students receive here. As a partner of Harper College and as a past foundation board member, I can really see the differences that this kind of program is going to make. I'm also a resident of the district for 15 years and a corporate resident of the district for some 20 years. And to have Harper deliver the quality of students, we've had interns from them work for our companies. They're amazing students, and the quality of education is second to none that we get at Harper College. So again, we're honored to support this strategic initiative and to look forward to the outcomes in the next 3 days and hearing from Ken 5 years from now to keep going with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Two other individuals I'd like to acknowledge before we get started. Over the course of the last 17 years, I have been proud and honored to lead the development of 4 strategic plans. This will be the 4th. There's been 2 constant people in every one of those plans. First is Rick Mayer, and I'll introduce Rick formally a little bit later, but Rick and I came together in New Jersey almost 20 years ago to think about how we could develop a community type of approach to building a strategic plan for the college. And he was a big asset then, has remained a good friend and a partner over the years, and I wouldn't be in the room with this particular design if Rick hadn't helped us put that together. So thank you for coming back, Rick. And then a person who's been in every single one of the planning programs I've ever done as I've been a college president, and someone who probably knows as much about the work as I do but doesn't say as much about it, my wife, Kathy Ender, who's in the back. Kathy? So here's the deal. We fed you. If you stick around long enough, we'll give you a drink. But we're going to work the heck out of you. If you'll notice, there is a schedule in your binder that will lay out the next 3 days. And I should say that our external partners, folks that are not receiving a paycheck from the college, we've invited you to come for the first 24 hours or so. We're going to use all the information that you put together in those 24 hours to work for yet another 24 hours to begin to put some broad language around that we can take back to our colleagues and begin to hone in on a strategic plan. You'll see that we are working hard up until about 6 o'clock this afternoon. We encourage you to take breaks when you need them. We had a break built into it, and then we ran out of time. I said, they're pretty much adults. They'll take a break when they need one, so please do take advantage when you need. There's always going to be food and beverage out there, and no one will be offended if you need to get a cup of coffee or need to take a bathroom break. We are going to spend the first portion of our time together doing a review of this last plan. And we really wanted to start. I was so pleased at the time to ask Dr. Jim Applegate, who then was the vice president of Luma Foundation. Jim and I are colleagues almost 25 years. We're in the ACE Fellows program together, and I regard Jim as a real thought leader in higher education nationally, and really appreciated his help 5 years ago when we came together. Jim came and helped us take a look at the landscape of higher education then, and before he left us, he gave us a little bit of a challenge. And can I put it up, or do you all want to put it up? You got it? Applegate? Yeah.
More than anything, I want to thank you for the work you're going to do after I leave and after this day is over and tomorrow is over and next week, where you really begin to take this into action and scalable, sustainable change that will make a difference for your students, because that's key.
So he basically told us, I'm just the sage on the side, or the guide on the side, or the guy that doesn't have to do any of the work. So I'm leaving. It's up to you. Good luck to you. Here's a quick vignette of what's happened since Jim gave us that admonition.
You'll be doing the real work in terms of thinking about how it makes a difference. You make a difference in saving the lives, literally, of hundreds and thousands of students here in the Chicago area.
We need to make sure that the barriers are torn down and that transparency exists.
There is a historical challenge in a lot of communities that they just don't, individuals don't see themselves as Harper, as post-secondary institutions, as being a place for them.
ready to get out there and start making things happen for myself.
It feels really good. Really great! Done!
It wasn't a cakewalk, but we made it through. Yeah.
It's hard, but you do it. And it's a lot of fun.
Harper means a lot to me. I will never forget him.
Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. Congratulations, you did it. Thank you, and good luck.
United States of America has a workforce development system. It's called higher education.
But when you look at 2010, the year 2020, we're looking at a 20 million shortfall in terms of workforce talent. Now, there are a lot of jobs now that are open, but the challenge is getting people that can actually do the jobs that are technically based.
Hi, my name is Sean. I went to Harper College for the MSSC certification, and now I work at Big Kaiser Precision Tooling. Big Kaiser Precision Tooling sells tools. My company sells the tooling for the Apple iPhones, part of it. We sell the micro drills to them and the micro tooling and some angle heads that go ahead and make everyone's iPhone. Before I worked at Big Kaiser, I worked at a trucking company, and minimum wage, no benefits, just hard labor for really cheap. Then when I came to Big Kaiser, they offered me a pretty good wage. It comes with full benefits, health, life, dental, 401k, and they reimbursed me for schooling, which was great. It's very satisfying to have control over my own destiny.
My name is Eric Triber, and I'm the president and CEO of Chicago White Metal Casting in Bensenville, Illinois. I think that Harper is one of the few colleges that has taken the leap to implement a manufacturing technology curriculum. We've got a young man at our company, Luke, who is a Harper student, and he came to us as an intern. He's in the manufacturing technology program with a specialization in supply chain logistics. We hired him, and he's now the assistant manager of our shipping department. So I can't think of a greater success story than a kid coming in as an intern, and now he's running one of our key departments in our company. So we need young kids today gaining an interest in manufacturing, and we have jobs for them.
Jim, please join me. We've asked Dr. Applegate to join us on the stage for us to do a quick review of these last 4 or 5 years and to get his honest assessment of where he thinks we've come and where we need to go. I want to begin reminding you all that we had 4 strategic directions in the last plan. Right? We talked about completion, we talked about partnerships, we talked about accountability, and we talked about inspiration. And we set measurable goals, 9 goals across those 4 general directions. I want to say a little bit about each one and then ask Dr. Applegate to comment. And then towards the end, I'm going to ask him to give us his suggestions for the next plan. I'd remind you we've got a hard stop at 1:40 because we have got a live video presentation coming from Denver, Colorado, and we don't want to be late. So let's begin with completion. Now we basically, I guess we were kind of naive. The president said, here's the goal, it's $5 million. And I had a really smart ACE fellow who was with me at the time who went home one night and figured out if we were going to take that challenge on, what would be Harper's contribution. He came in and said 10,604. It was in the context of our strategic planning. We drank the Kool-Aid and we said, okay, that's the number. And as we sit here today, we are some 65% to that goal with 5 years left. We've increased our persistence rates, and all that is good news. Our graduation rate is up. The bad news, and something that we want to be very clear about, we want to be thinking about in this conference, is we've not done a good job with achievement gaps. We really haven't moved the needle at scale for minority students being persistent in graduating from our college. On pilot programs we've done with these groups, we do very well with small numbers, but scale has been something that we have not been able to achieve. Jim?
Well, let me say first of all that I think what you've captured here in this completion piece is actually important components around what we would call quality. When I was at Lumina and we set the 60% goal that Illinois has embraced and Harper has embraced, you know, one of the first reactions we got was, well, that's great, so let's print those degrees on the back of McDonald's wrappers, and we can pretty soon hit 60% of everybody having a college credential. And we know the promise of an educated population isn't realized unless those degrees are, if you would, dare I use the word warranties, that we're guaranteeing that students learn certain things. And then I think the other component that you have here was also very farsighted because, you know, I've been around long enough, as you can probably tell from looking at me, that when all we talked about was access. If everybody out there thought if we got students to the college door, we could check the box and we were done. And then it's been wonderful to see over the years with a lot of foundations, institutions, the president, moving this to what we call the completion agenda. But now I think we're at a point, and you guys saw this obviously a while ago, people are asking the question, completion for what? In other words, what is it that these degrees are getting people? Now, we have good data to show that college degrees have enormous value. But we need to be doing a better job in Illinois helping you through hopefully launching at some point before I die, the Illinois Longitudinal Data System and others, where we can track all of our students and I know the community colleges already do this in a very effective way. Universities, we need to ramp that up. So we can begin to look systematically at, okay, salary, placement, employment, and feedback, because I think that's the crucial next step. You know, even in my most curmudgeonly days as a faculty department chair, I think if I'd gotten a regular report on what was happening to my graduates like that, and the news wasn't as good as I liked, the first thing, of course, I would have tried to have done would be to discredit the report by attacking its statistics and methodology and design, because to keep your faculty credentials, you have to start there. But I like to think year after year, if I kept getting that information, it might have occurred to me to ask the question, why? Is my curriculum not up to date? Do I even know who tends to hire my graduates? Do I have a partnership with them? Do I need to expand my internship, externship programs? And that's the loop I think that you all are already much involved in, and we need to get the whole higher ed system. The other thing I'd say there, and I'm going to go back to your slide about inspiration. So I think that was the right word when you started, but one of the things you've done is there's been a lot of perspiration. And now I think we're talking about commitment. And you know, and it's commitment, you've shown that commitment now. The progress that you've made here, one of my best friends in higher education, Nancy Zemper at the SUNY system, always says trending upward is the most powerful motivator we can have. That's backed up by psychological literature, that there's no more powerful motivator for humans to keep going than evidence they're progressing. And you've got that. So I think going forward, I'm reminded of a book I recently read by Stephen Johnson called Future Perfect. And it's a book about how we can use technology innovatively to marshal people around causes and improve society. But in the beginning, he talks about, I'm an American Studies major. That was one of those really career-aligned, job-related majors. But in any case, American progressive movements always fascinated me. If we were known for one thing in this country, it's pragmatism in philosophy and progressivism in terms of these movements. If you go back and look at those, and this is Stephen Johnson's point, really, they were people who confronted what we call today the brutal facts, but they were optimists. And they always worked then to find that plan, and it took years and decades. Martin Luther King was not the civil rights movement, right? Nor was Rosa Parks. It was decades of long work. And the example he uses there, and I want to carry to this example, and I'll shut up. He makes reference to the Miracle on the Hudson. How many of you know what the Miracle on the Hudson is? God bless the media. We all know what the Miracle on the Hudson is, right? Hero, Captain Sully, miracle, lands, people live. So it's miracle and heroes. And he says what that kind of mentality has done to us in some ways today is to get us sit around waiting for miracles and heroes to make change. And when you really look at how change happens, that's not the way it happens. And he points out, and I checked with some of my more expert colleagues in various aeronautics programs here in the University of Illinois, and they tell me this is largely true, that the reason those people are alive today, give the captain some credit, is because years and years ago in that industry, there were a lot of planes crashing into the ocean and crashing into the ground, and a lot of people were dying. And right now we're in one of the safest ever periods for aeronautics, knock on wood, since we all get in a plane every once in a while. But what they did was they began to look at what are the facts? What's the problem here? Why are these planes crashing and killing people? And it's complicated, but there are two things he highlights. One is engine design, and the other is the guidance system was too fragile. Engines caught fire too easily, they blew apart too easily, they tore planes up too easily, and guidance systems went out too quickly. So they worked for more than a decade, thousands of engineers and aeronautics experts and people in plants all over this country, looking at the brutal facts, working collaboratively together with a common problem, and they made progress. And as a result, when those birds hit that plane over the Hudson River, the engine did not catch fire. It did not fall apart. Now, it did stop. But when it stopped, the guidance systems stayed in place. So when the captain was landing his plane, he could see whether he was level or not. He wasn't landing blind and hoping he wasn't tilted a little bit. So the point is, those people are alive today because thousands of people came together over a long period of time, worked hard with a common goal, and made the progress. That's what you're doing here, and that's what we have to do in Illinois as a state if we're really going to get to where we need to be by our goal date of 2025.
Two thoughts about that. The slideshow we just put up, the young man that had the role in manufacturing, not introduced by the manager, but the student who spoke on his own, talked about being in charge of his own destiny. And that's what quality education is about, quality training is about. That, I thought, probably one of the more poignant parts of that film clip. The other thing I would say to you, Jim, is we have thought about this journey we're on, much like Jim Collins, who wrote the book From Good to Great, that tells the story of the two expeditions that left simultaneously to march to the South Pole. And one, of course, Admiral Byrd, he didn't quite make it out and back. And he was a guy that every day had a new plan, it seemed like. If the weather was good, he'd go 20, 30 miles. If it wasn't so good, he'd hunker down. And his competitor had a very clear plan. He's going to march 20 miles a day. If it was good weather or bad, he had supply depots set that way for the entire journey, and he made it there and he made it back. His team survived. We think about this a lot as an everyday 20-mile march, and we're inspired when we make progress. With respect to partnerships, actually, I think this is where we have excelled externally in our work on the strategic plan. I think the greatest work that I've personally been associated with is working with the three sending districts, 211, 220, 214. Each one of those superintendents is in the room today, will help us with the development of this plan. We've developed a very powerful coalition among and between our faculty and staffs that have led, as you saw on the slide, 27% reduction on the need for developmental math. That's huge. 27% is huge. We're over 200% increase in early college credit. We're working on a program right now with them that every high school senior will have the opportunity to earn 15 hours of college credit while they're still in high school. Tremendous good results from our partnerships with manufacturers across the region, which led to a very nice federal grant to take the program we established at Harper and disseminate it across the state. And then finally, the latest example of coming out of the plan has been the work we've done in Hanover Park with Elgin Community College, and my colleague and friend David Sam is here, will speak with us later. I mean, that partnership involved in Karen Northington Reeves. Where are you, Karen? There you are. Karen is the executive director, chair of the Chicago Cook Workforce Board. With their partnership, we were able to establish an outreach center down in Hanover Park that was oversubscribed from the day we opened it. So in Illinois, we're broke, but there is money if we figure out how to put it together.
I don't want to say more than amen. I think when I was at the Lumina Foundation, when I was in Kentucky, we launched regional partnerships like this. We called it regional stewardship because that was the hot term of the day. And then when I was at Lumina, we designed the program focused on urban areas. But basically, this idea that many of us have heard about now, which you're implementing, and some people do it and don't call it that, it doesn't matter what you call it, but it's collaboration for collective impact, where you really bring together multi-sector partnerships within some region, functionally related region. And as you said, first of all, you look at your assets, because there are lots of assets. We often start with a deficit model. Woe is us. Our data is bad on this. Our data is bad on that. But look at your assets. And then the key there is to do a little head knocking, which it takes, and identify some common goals and priorities. Commit to sharing your data, so you're not, when we did this at Lumina with cities, we had someone do an analysis for us of the top 50 metro areas in the country, and we found that the number of college access and success programs that were operating in those cities ranged from 22 to 48 to 61 to 36. They all had their own data. They were all claiming victory, that they were great programs, and yet the overall increase in education attainment in those cities was going nowhere. So we realized the last thing that needed to happen was for somebody to come in and start the 37th College Access and Success Program. We needed to create resources so people could come together, create set common goals, share their data, and develop strategies. And then somebody waking up every morning thinking about that partnership, and everybody committing to who's going to do what based on their strengths. Community college has a role. So you lead in some areas, maybe not in all areas. Someone else leads in another area. In higher ed, we have a tendency to want to always assume the expert role, which is sort of why some of my people we worked with that called higher ed a prickly partner in some cities. So we're like a cactus. It's hard. Sometimes you all sounds like you're not, but some of them are. So how do we work together and move forward? So this, I couldn't agree more that obviously we need for the state to invest in higher education in Illinois. We don't get there if Illinois cuts another $1 billion out of our budget the way they did the last 10 years. But on the other hand, there's a lot we can do through partnership, as you're describing, to bring those sectors together and utilize our resources around a common set of strategies with clear roles for everybody. Who's pulling what parts, and somebody who wakes up every morning whose job it is to check in on everybody who made those commitments and make sure they're doing their part. Right. And if we do that, and you're doing it, and I know you're working, see President Baker sitting here, I know you're working with Doug Baker at Northern Illinois around some of that work. So the more we, working with Advanced Illinois, we have these 60 by 2025 networks, and sometimes they don't call themselves that. I don't care, as long as it's a good regional partnership. We're looking for ways to find more support for that, because we think that regional solution is the solution for Illinois. Illinois is a big state, it's very diverse, needs are different. The state can do some things. It can invest. We're convening a meeting of all the relevant agency heads next month who have a lot of data and a lot of resources at the state level, but the idea is, when we had the Aurora meeting of all those networks, we listened as to what would be helpful. So we're trying to figure out what Department of Employment Security, Economic Development, ICCB, IBA, the whole alphabet soup, what can we do to be helpful to you? Because you're the ones that are going to, and you are the ones now, that are going to make things happen on the ground.
Well, and I want to just reinforce one point. We have intentionally populated this conference with who we think are the affinity partners. Certainly the Higher Education Board, the Illinois Community College Board. Karen Anderson's here, she'll speak with us later. Doug Baker from Northern Illinois has been a tremendous asset since he's arrived. The 3 superintendents, our Chicago Cook Workforce Board, and then of course, all of our local opinion leaders and thought leaders, both internal and external. One other thing I mentioned about partnerships that I hope I will keep in our minds as we go forward. While I thought we did some terrific work externally and we did some pretty good work internally, I think that we need to find more vehicles to partner institutionally with the classroom. The classroom is where every student goes. We wonder about how to round up students, corral them in a project, well, every day they're in somebody's classroom. And I think we probably could leverage that internal partnership in a far more robust manner than we have done historically. So just leave it there for now. Accountability, I have to tell you, this made it to the strategic directions because of you. And it was our foundation board members and our board of trustees who kept, I think pounding is probably exaggeration, but strongly encouraged that we not develop a strategic plan that did not have some clear commitment around being transparent and accountable to both the boards and to our community. We actually got a lot of good work in this space from internally, from an accountability committee we put together and worked on the strategic plan. Probably a little overambitious. We started with 23 institutional indicators of performance. We have since then now taken that to 10, 5 on student success, 5 on institutional effectiveness. And we're now at a place, Jim, where we can disaggregate every bit of data we collect on our students in any way you want to slice and dice it, and it will be available with a new product we're delivering to the campus. On every faculty member, counselor, administrators, you will get this information in real time, and you can compare group to group on everything we do.
Well, I mean, I think we learned way back in the day, my view is, without data, you're just a person with an unfounded opinion. I mean, that's all you are. And maybe you have an anecdote or two, but it's entertaining, but don't waste my time. I mean, I want to know we have to have evidence-based investments, because if we can't demonstrate return on investment with that evidence, we're in big trouble. And so the more we can do that, and what you've done here, I just as a parallel, I was just up, as you know, and you're involved in this, the Chicago Public Schools are trying to launch this compact with higher education. And what they've done, this is not related to the higher ed connection, but what they've done with their on-track data in the first year has been, I mean, I'm new and I've seen their data and I've looked at it. It's pretty amazing. But so when you can get this down to what you've done here and keep the focus on that, and then you can say, if it's not about moving that dial, you got to make a really good case to me that we should do it. Now that's really, and that's hard in higher education, because we all have our dearly beloved things that we do, stuff. I was out at a data meeting with the Cal State system, and Cal State is a system, but the system office there, even though they're, quote, a system, has as much trouble getting their institutions to do things as any other entity would. But they did some analysis on what impacted persistence and graduation. And it turned out that completing your required English and math the first year you were there was a massively powerful predictor of staying there. They also looked, and they weren't willing to go public with this yet, so maybe I shouldn't go public here, but they had tentative data to suggest that all these wonderful, I used to teach in one of these courses, the 1-credit college transition course kind of thing that we all do. Here's the library, here's how you stay off drugs, you need to go talk to your faculty member. And I love teaching that course. I volunteered for it every time. It's fun, But the evidence was like, this is having little to no impact anywhere we look, and yet they're spending a lot of money. So you'd think you got the evidence it doesn't work, you're spending a lot of money, quite logical, right? You stop doing it. Well, not so much, and you know why. So anyway, but I do think this is what drives the train, and it's really, obviously, again, you've got great results, but even if you didn't have good results, you know you didn't have good results, right. And you know you needed to revamp and rethink, and maybe if Admiral Byrd had had some data like this, he might have done better.
Just done 20 miles a day.
That's right.
Finally, the last direction we pursued was the inspiration direction, and I guess sort of to demonstrate that, would every Harper employee who is an ambassador, and you know who you are, please stand up. So look around, folks. Thank you. These individuals, and they are 30 in number, have agreed pretty much on their own time to serve as a Harper delegate liaison to one of the 30 schools in the district we serve that 50% or more of their youngsters is on free or reduced lunch. And I'm working with Jane Addams Elementary School. We're mostly working with elementary school students, mostly working with their parents and their principals. And the idea is, early on, while you're in elementary school, middle school, that you become very knowledgeable about your local community college, and it is where you will go. No question about it, you need to be there. To back that up with inspiration, we have promised every youngster in our district who currently is in 8th grade, next year will be in 9th grade, if those youngsters for 4 consecutive years meet benchmarks in job readiness capacity, attendance, quality, rigor, persistence, and service to your community, and graduate remediation-free, you earn your first semester tuition to Harper College, and your second, and your third, and your fourth. And we're going to be talking to all these schools right now, because we know one of the things that's the biggest detriment to inspiration is not having any hope.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that there is a path there, and the school superintendents in the room today have helped make that happen, and that inspires me just when I think about
absolutely.
it. So.
Well, that's absolutely what we need to do. One of the, when I first came to the board, my first meeting as executive director, and I'll talk a little bit about more, this is my wrap up, about framing what I hope, with the great work you're doing, how you can help us get further down the path at the state level. But you know, we looked at what's happened in Illinois higher education over the last 5 years. We brought NCHEMS in, and one of the findings was, to your point about helping these, giving the equity of expectations and resources to be able to realize those. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we've got problems on both sides of that. One, we don't have equity of expectations. I still hear people say, well, some people aren't college material, right? But we also then, you can have equity of expectations, but if you're not putting the resources behind it, it's right. Expectations based on, I don't know, Cinderella stories. And by the way, those folks who say some people aren't college material, I always ask them, are your kids going to college? And the answer has never been anything but yes. And I just tell a quick story. You've worked a lot with superintendents. I know you got great superintendents. They were here when I was here before. I know they worked with you hand in glove. But I was talking to a group of superintendents, not in Illinois, and I gave them my standard spiel about what happens if kids don't get to college. How much more likely to be unemployed. They're going to die sooner. How much less money they're going to make. How much more likely they are, particularly if they're a young male, particularly a young male of color, will end up involved with the criminal job, on and on and on. That's true for everybody. And so at the end of it, we had question and answer, and one of the superintendents stood up and he said, well, Dr. Applegate, that was great. It's good to know this stuff. I can use this when I go back to my district. But you got to understand, some of my kids just aren't college material.
Right.
And I looked at him, you know, you try to be tactful in these public settings. And so I said, well, Mr. Superintendent, you know, and your professional educators know your students better than I do, but I might make a deal with you. I'll come to your district for free. You don't have to pay a dime. You assemble all the students that you've decided are not college material and their parents or foster parents or whoever loves them in an assembly. I will show them the implications of not going to college. And then in transparency, for initial transparency, which we all believe in, you tell them that you and your faculty have decided that their children are not college material. And I looked at him, I said, if they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. I never got invited to that school.
I didn't even get invited back to talk to those superintendents.
That's right.
We're at 1:40. I'm going to ask you to join our panel responding to Dr.
Sure.
Griswold,
Yeah.
and then, because I want to hear your suggestions about the next plan, I think it will come right out of this unsettling times.
Okay.
And I know he's queued up, if I'm right.